Hello guys, I'm going to show you how to do a galaxy scene today on Yupo with alcohol inks, and I will tell you if you, I will warn you, if you do this, it does stain your stamps. So keep that in mind. I'm only using two, the Star Cluster and the Galaxy Large from Stampscapes, and then I may put in some trees last. Alright, so the colors I'm going to use today are Stream, Indigo, and Cobalt. And those are the blues. These are the purples. I'm doing Wild Plum, Boysenberry, and Vineyard. 3 different types of purples. Pinkish purples, anyway. I got a pinkish purple, a bluish purple, and then a more normal purple, which is the boysenberry. I really love that boysenberry. Anyway, this is an extra piece of Yupo. I think it's just under 5 by 7. It may not be that big. Maybe like 4, 6. I don't know. Anyway, one thing you want to do when you're making alcohol ink scenes is make sure your paper doesn't have a bunch of debris on it. I have found every little speck shows up. So make it as clean as possible before you start. I just blow on it a little and usually get everything off right before I start. So I'm using alcohol blending solution, and I'm using 91% alcohol. And this one I just put in an old blending solution bottle because it makes it so much easier. If you use the blending solution, your colors will not dilute. If you use the alcohol, they dilute a little bit, and it reacts differently, so it depends on what you're looking for. I usually use a combination of both, basically because I don't want to replace the blending solution all the time. So, cost effective, you know. So, I'm going to start with the blues, and I'll add some purple last because I don't want the purples to be overwhelming. I want it to be mainly blue and green hues. And I'm just making the background. Then I'll stamp over top of it to make the scene. So, here we go. I'm going to first wet it with alcohol ink. And move that around. Get it nice and covered. If I have some white spots, I try to fill those in. It's just easier to do with the alcohol beforehand. And it's going to dry pretty quick, so then I will start adding color. I'm going to add some Stream and some Cobalt. And some Indigo. And for me, it doesn't matter a whole lot where I put these. My color scheme is going to change as I move this around. See, as it's wet, it's a lot easier to blend things. So I basically run it along all the edges. And as you see, I'm using paper towels underneath because it will drip all over the place. Now, you see I've got a good healthy amount of color on here, and it's still moving. So I'm going to put in some green just because I can't see it very much. And then I'll allow some of that extra to drip off while I move this around some more. Then I'm going to throw in some purples in this corner. Plum, boysenberry, and Vineyard. Vineyard's more of a blue purple, so I'm not going to add as much of that one. And now I'm going to use the blending solution. And if I don't like how dark it's getting, when I let some of it run, as extra ink run off, it's going to lighten, you see? So I'm not too concerned about it being too dark. Probably, usually never. If anything, I make it too light. Because as I go, you see this will start, as it blends and I let some of this extra ink run off. Because all that excess ink tends to puddle up and make dark areas. And that's okay if that's what you're looking for. But I'm looking for more of a smooth background. Or semi-smooth anyway. This still has a few little areas in it that's not completely smooth, but that's okay. It won't show through the stamping that I'm going to do. So, I like this one so far. I've got a good healthy amount of purple there, and it fades nicely into the blue. That vineyard helped a little bit, I can tell, around the edges. I don't use vineyard often, so I can see how it did that a little differently. I also have this, you can use a hair dryer or just a blower. I also have this dryer to help me get it dry quicker. Sometimes it makes little puddle areas, but that's okay. That stuff will be darker once I stamp over it, so it's okay. There we go. I'm pretty much probably going to leave it on the paper towels because I end up cleaning a bunch of ink off my desk otherwise. You can do either or. I try to keep these in order, but it never works, so I don't know why I try. So now, something I found, you can't use dye ink on your bow. It does not dry, ever. You can spray it to death and do all kinds of things, and it still is not going to dry. By spray, I mean like some sort of cover spray. It even doesn't cover that. So, anyway, so you have to use alcohol ink. So I have found that both the Tombow markers work, but what I found works even better is the real alcohol inks, which is a little stronger than the Tombow. I have these Artist Loft markers that I use, and I'm just going to use black. But you can use all kinds of colors. Sometimes I use purples and other blues to stamp on top of this. Let's see if I can find the right colors. So I've like this pinkish color, and then I've got this purple, and I've got this blue, and another blue. So I may use those as well, but you know, that's just for your specific taste. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the black, and this should be dry enough to start stamping on. It usually doesn't take much, you know, to do that. And you can remove your gloves at this point or keep them on. Doesn't really matter. It's whatever you like to do. I use the markers to ink up the stamps, since they don't offer alcohol stamps. stamp pads. I wish they would. Don't know how that would work. Probably wouldn't. Anyway, I ink these up, and while they're wet, I stamp them. And sometimes you're gonna see the whole image, and sometimes you're not gonna get the whole image. I'm sorry. Scratch the paper towels. That's not gonna work. That is not hard enough of a surface to stamp on. So, because my impressions weren't very clear. So as you see, I'm just inking up the stamp with the alcohol marker, then stamping onto the image. Sometimes they can get sticky, and it's just because the alcohol ink dries so fast. And see, I'm starting with Star Cluster because it's a little lighter of an image. The Galaxy is much darker and more filled in, so I use that one around the edges typically, more so than to the middle. As you can see, it's showing up some. One thing I forgot to mention, you can also use alcohol ink. That stuff is a little trickier, so I'm going to show it last. I'll continue with my impressions around the outside. I'm really not doing this in perfect fashion or anything, but it doesn't really matter. A lot of it gets covered when you start to put in the stars and use the lift ink. So, you know. Now I'm going to go to the Galaxy stamp. So, this one being so large, you don't have to ink up the whole thing at once. I find that if I just do a little bit at a time, it works just fine. So I'm going to use this corner of this star. This will end up looking kind of like star cluster or nebula or something like space-ish look. And that's what I'm going for. I want it to be a little splotchy. I want it to have a unorganized look. This is not like your typical scene whatsoever. This is going with the flow and having fun with it. I usually leave the edges dry just because the squareness sometimes makes it difficult to get the look I want. The squareness of the overall shape. And as you see, it's sticking. Totally normal. It's because as soon as this alcohol ink hits that alcohol ink, it wants to dry immediately. And I've not found a better way to do this. So this is my version for right now. I like to darken around the edges. I can go into the center a little bit sometimes and make some darker impressions in there. I mainly use this one for creating that nice darker edge. And again, you have to work pretty quick. So you can put that ink on, stamp it down. That's what kind of makes this really fun, is you're not trying to control it so much. You don't have time to control it. You have to put it down quickly in order to get the impression not to stick. Trust me, I've gotten it stuck to the paper. Listen to that. Okay, so I've got a lot of dark in there now, and now I'm probably going to follow up with the alcohol lift ink. So I'll put the black away for a moment. And I'm going to clean my stamp. This is important if you don't want your alcohol lift ink to turn black. Because trust me, it'll soak up every ounce of ink that's left on this stamp. And I'm just using the 91% alcohol on this to clean it. And you see how stained it is. Normally, no matter what dye ink I use, normally alcohol takes it straight off. I usually use water if I can. Since they're water-based, it typically comes off with water as well. But alcohol for stained stamps usually works. These I've used so much with the markers that it is permanently stained. Anyway, yeah. So here's the alcohol lift ink. The trick with this is have some paper towels to wipe it off. That is the trick. So if you want to be able to see it, it's easier to do it like this. Really get it on there. You can see it's nice and shiny. And then place it where you want. You're not going to see it until you take off the ink. Okay. And you take the paper towel and you wipe it around. And it's going to lift that ink off. See how it turned a little white? It's taking those areas off. And it creates a really nice transition and contrast from the black that we just went around and used. It'll lift that up off it as well. So, see, we do that. And then go back in with the paper towel. And the edges here. Let's see. Creates this nice subtle texture. And shows you the stamp a lot better than in the black. You see? Let's see if I can show it to you. So you can see the areas of that stamp a lot better. little bit up here to lighten it. If you leave it and let it dry and don't wipe it off, it doesn't change. So there's really no harm, no foul in this way of stamping. So it looks decently good. If let's see where else I need that light color. I like being able to see the image of the stamp a little bit more than with the black. It's really subtle, but it's there. And it creates the look of a galaxy quite nicely. So, like I said, you can also use other colors of markers to get what you're going for. So, like, say I want some more pinks, okay? So I'm gonna use the marker, and I'll show you how this comes up. You rub off, you take off the alcohol ink or not. It's not really gonna affect it much. So I'm gonna put some pink on here and stamp it down and show you. It's gonna brighten up that area with pink. See? It added some. I don't know if you can see that. It's subtle, but it's there. I'll use it in the black area over here. See, create kind of a darker purple over here. Color. Again, this is just a fun experimental way of doing things. It's not really very planned. It's just how it looks to me, and I just go with it. It's a little more expressionistic than it is planned. Let's see. There's some blues and purples. Shoot this blue. Let's try a brighter color, like this blue. Let's see if it works. Sometimes the lighter colors show up and sometimes they don't. Depends on what we're putting in, I guess. There's a little bit there, the cyan, a little bit. Okay, so now I've gotten this, the surface is drying still pretty good. So I'm gonna stop with those, and I'll show you how to do the trees. For this one, I'm going to use you could leave it like this and just do stars, and it would be just a galaxy. For this one, I'm going to make it look kind of like the sky, so we're going to add in trees. And this one is pines and rocks, popular. Let's see. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to use the black 900 marker on this one. And I'm probably going to angle it around the bottom here. So you're like looking up at the sky. So I'm only actually gonna really do one tree at a time. I won't need more than that. Make sure it's nice and wet before we put it down. You'll see this is, it may not show up because I've got it so dark. So we'll have to see. Sometimes it's too dark to show up. Yeah, I can't really tell. So I'm gonna flip it and actually do the trees around this area, because then you'll actually be able to see it. I've got the background too dark. So I'm probably gonna right towards here. And you can see that one a little bit. I also have this soft pine, and I really love this little stamp. It's very easy to use. But because it's a little more solid, it's easier to see the trees than some of the other stamps. Because I made this area so dark, I may lighten it a little bit more down here so we can see it by using the alcohol lift ink. Hello guys, I'm going to show you how to do a gal. Alright, so I've got a little bit more of that ink lift up. Now I can stamp some more of the trees, and hopefully it'll show up better. I'm going to use this stamp from Makin A Scene because it's a little more solid. It may work better with this scene. It may not show up as much, but we'll see. Try this one. There's a little more trees added. Well, they're there, but it's hard to tell. So keep at it and see if I can get it to work a little better. Use my little soft pine. Fill in some of the wider spaces down here, the base of the trees. Could always go in with the marker and darken areas that didn't stamp dark enough. Or you can stamp it again over it and hope that that darkens it. That worked. Okay, so darken that corner again. Some of this space didn't fill in perfectly, so I'm going to fill it in with the marker and darken it up. You could always go along marker on the bottom here, darken the space, and blend it in. Make it stand out a bit more. This tree didn't quite get dark enough. Try that again. I can see that better. If you layer so many aqua inks, it can get a little sticky. You just have to let it set and dry. See, this one is not. Didn't quite finish itself here. There we go. So you can kind of see their trees. It's subtle, but and then lastly, I go in with Martin's bleed-proof white. I get it wet, and then I get a little bit of white on there. And then if I want to cover the trees, not good on that, I just lay some paper towels over. A nice sprinkle above it for stars. Really lightly. If you don't like a spot, it's really easy to remove. See, I got too much on this tree here, so I can just dab it right up if I don't like it. If it lessens the darkness of the tree, I can go back in with the alcoholic. Okay. And can always go in with the gel pen and put in highlights in the trees. If you want to make them stand out a bit more. Though the gel pen doesn't stand out as much as the bleed-proof white, so, you know. You could also use Kevin's trick with the pigment white and make certain stars stand out more than others. Use the make these a little bit brighter. softly. You can also use a little bit of the proof white. To brighten those areas. And now you've got your background, your stars, and your trees. There you go. Hope you enjoyed this video, and please leave comments or suggestions as to what you want to see next, and I will try to do that. Thank you.